Powered by Riverside.
And welcome in wherever you are, whatever you are doing. Thank you for listening. I'm your host, Jay, and welcome to another episode of the Young Dad Podcast. I'm joined by my man, Max, here, and we are super excited to have a great conversation today. Max is in active duty within the Army. He's been in the Army for over 20 years. He's a dad, husband, a coach, and just a overall really cool dude. So super excited to have Max on with me today. Max, how you doing?
Great, Jay. Thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
Of course, man. I'm super excited. This is awesome. So just at the top here, from myself and from the audience, thank you for your service to our country and to those that you serve with. Thank you guys for your service. We wouldn't be able to enjoy the freedoms of podcasting and being able to listen to podcasts wherever we are while we're doing random things like mowing the lawn and changing diapers and laying on the couch with one headphone in while our kids are running amok. So thank you and all the other active duty and retired servicemen and women who serve. So,
For sure, man. I appreciate the support.
of course, we Young Dad Podcast, we proudly support our military. We will always proudly support our military. You guys are who allows us to have great freedom. Myself, I have family who my grandfathers served in between Korea, Vietnam, great grandfather served in World War II. So a lot of family history of military within my family. So it's something that I take really seriously. My grandfather, who raised me from 2 weeks until I was 8 years old, passed away at 58 years old because of complications from serving in Vietnam, from getting lung cancer. And then my other grandpa, who passed away 6, 7 years ago, passed away because all his issues from serving caught up with him. Kidneys gave out on him after a very long time. So just long complications from serving in the military. So I have a special place because I know between the PTSD and between the toll it takes on the body, I've seen it firsthand just how grueling it is, how much of a sacrifice it is. And it's volunteer work. I mean, you get paid for it, but no one says you have to go and take this job. It's a volunteer position and you sign up to go and do it. So it's much appreciated. So make sure you guys, when you guys are listening to this, go and thank an active or retired servicemen and women. When you see them at the store, you see the old man or old lady walking around with a Vietnam veteran hat, World War II veteran hat, or Korea or whatever hat they're wearing, you see it, shake their hand. I did that in the sauna the other morning because I heard the dude talking how he did some tours in Iraq. So as I was leaving the sauna, I shook his hand.
That's awesome.
So it was super cool. But regardless, before we jump in here, I do want to just shout out one of our opening sponsor of the podcast today is Dad Bod Supply Company. If you're looking at my hat, my lighting's a little weird, so you can't really get a good angle of it. But this hat says, support your local girl dad. It has this mesh-ish background. It's an active hat. It's from Dad Bod Supply Company. You can go to the link down in the description or link on any of my social media. You can go and get the same hat because, I mean, it's important to support your local girl dad. And you can get 15% off and by using the code YoungDad. So it's fantastic there. So that's enough of the business. Max, tell us about you. Tell us about what you do every day between work and coaching and just life in general.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, man, I appreciate it. So, hey, everybody. My name is Max, or Coach Max. I'm an active duty military officer. I've been serving for almost 21 years now. And then about a year ago, I started this online fitness coaching business. I started for two reasons. One, in January of 2023, I got sober after years of battling with alcohol. And I just started to get fit and get in shape, and I realized this is something I wanted to help other people do. And then number two, my oldest daughter, Gabriella, she was born with a brain injury. She's 7 years old. So each and every single day, she has to step outside of her comfort zone and push harder to do things that quote unquote, normal children do. And so that has also inspired me to push outside my comfort zone and start this business so I can help and serve others. Just a life of service. Obviously, being in the military, I find that to be probably the most fulfilling thing is being able to serve others and help them achieve what they want. And so that's part of the reason why I started my business. So in a nutshell, what I do every single day is I wake up somewhere between 3:30 and 4 a.m. I'll eat my first meal, and then I'll reach out to my clients or check on them first thing in the morning. Then I go hit my workout. After my workout, I go into work, and then I'll work for numerous hours. Right now, I'm helping develop plans for the team, so I'll help develop plans for the team that I'm a larger part of. I'll do that for most of the day. I try to get out of here at a decent time to be able to pick up my oldest from school, and I'll pick her up from school and then take her home and then straight into either some type of therapy, whether it's speech, OT, or PT for Gabriella, or practice. She's in the pageants right now, and so that's like really heartwarming being able to be there and help watch her practice and observe that, and that's pretty cool. And then the rest of the evening is typically spent with like either bathing the little one, feeding the little one, chasing the kids around, trying to pick up laundry, typical dad life stuff for the rest of the evening. And then typically after dinner is like my time to really start getting to work on business stuff. And that's when I'll delve into like program development, reaching back out to clients, client responses, stuff like that. And then go to sleep, wake up, and do it all over again, man. So
I love it. That's awesome. So 2 kids, correct?
yeah. Gabriella and Olivia. That's right.
Awesome. So yeah, you need to support your local girl dads here. Uh,
Yeah.
So you've been serving for 20 plus years, 21 years here soon. By the time it comes out, you'll celebrate your 21-year anniversary. What got you into the military? What's kept you in for so long? What's like the driving force behind your military career?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that, man, for sure. So when I originally joined, it's going to sound silly, but I was young, really young at the time, and I just needed a job. That was part one. So I was in love with my first wife at the time, and I really wanted to get married, and I knew I couldn't just get married and then just live in my bedroom or in the basement of our house, right? I'd be able to provide. And so the quickest and easiest way for me to do that was join the military. So that's part one. Part two was it was just after 9/11. So 9/11 had just popped off, and the war had really just started to surge. And so like I felt that call to action in order to go forward and serve our nation. So it was twofold. Number one, selfishly, I needed a job. And then number two, I just wanted to serve our nation. So that's part of the reason why I initially joined. And then the ongoing service, why? Well, the big reason why has to do with when it comes to teamwork and community. The military is really good at two different things, and I would say the first is teamwork. You have your outliers for like superstars, and they'll do great by themselves for a little while, but if they're not performing as a larger part of a team, if they're not playing into that team mentality, they're going to fail, right? And so what the Army does best is they develop and build great teams, right? And so like that alone, like gives you a sense of belonging and sense of like accomplishment, coming together with people from all walks of life, right? And driving towards one purpose as a team is really cool. So it's very fulfilling. So that's number one. And then number two was the fact that like you continue to have new opportunities. So every 3 to 5 years, you're going to move. Within those 3 to 5 years, you're going to change your job, you're going to change your boss, or you're going to change your mission, right? So there's always something new to learn, and there's always something new to help drive your interest. And so those two reasons are the main two reasons why I stayed so long. And then just the pure satisfaction that comes with like knowing that you've helped others get better. Again, back to that team building concept, or that you've helped the nation get better through your smaller actions.
Gotcha. No, that's awesome. That makes sense. It's always changing. It's always different. Keeps you going. Doesn't get
For
monotonous.
sure.
It sounds like
No.
there's very little monotony to be had, which is pretty cool. So what currently is what is your rank as of today? And then what is your overall like plan? How much longer do you see yourself being in for? Do you see yourself staying active duty, going to reservists, or kind of what do you see as like your plans like military wise?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I'm a captain right now, promotable. I'll be a major soon. I'm prior enlisted, so what that means is I enlisted in the United States military in '03. I did about 10, 11 years enlisted before I commissioned. Went to college at University of Arizona, Bear Down, and then now I'm approaching 10 years of commission time. My plan right now is to stay in at least another 3 to 5 years, and then just kind of see where the military takes us from there. If we're still having fun, then we'll stay in a little bit longer. If we decide it's no longer fun for me and the family, then we'll say, okay, we'll go ahead and hang it up. I do not intend to join the reserves or the guard following my time on active duty. I think once I'm done, I'm done. And at that point, I plan on diving full force into online fitness coaching and doing that full time.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So you're pretty much around 25 years is when you'll kind of make that decision.
Yeah.
More or less. Okay. That's crazy because
for
that's a
sure.
really long time to be in one spot. But I mean, you're only a few years away. So being in the military, pretty much growing up in the military, doing life while in the military. I mean, you mentioned your first wife, so you've been married, divorced, and remarried, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Correct.
And you've brought children in. You've had children
Mm-hmm.
while in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And you overcome addiction while in the military and
Mm-hmm.
overcome personal health issues while in the military. So
Correct.
would you say the military is what's been the driving force to overcome those things, or the things that being in the military has taught you? And then if it is the things that being in has taught you, what are those things that you have been taught throughout life to go through all these different challenges?
Yeah, so man, that's an awesome question, Jay. I really appreciate that. So yes, the military has helped me get through some of these things, right? And it's for a couple different reasons. So let's unpack a little bit. Let's go back to just the first marriage in general. The military very quickly taught me that I was immature whenever I first joined, and I wasn't ready for a marriage because I still had to learn who I was as a human being. And as I was growing and developing and becoming sharper and smarter and more dedicated to things, I realized like we were at different places in our life. And like while I was still largely immature, she was very immature. And at that point in my life, I was going to grow, and she wasn't ready for that. And so I could not go forward in that partnership knowing that I was ready to grow and that she wasn't. So that was part of the primary reason for my first divorce. We didn't have children. We didn't have like any businesses or properties, anything like that together. So it was relatively easy when it came to the legal portion of the divorce. However heartbreaking it might be because the marriage is ending. So yeah, so that was the first one. The second one, let's just talk about the alcoholism for a second. Alcoholism really came along in my mid 20s. So when I joined at 19, I drank some when I was younger. I had my first drink at 15 years old, but I drank some when I was younger, deployed and came back, and then really started drinking a bunch of alcohol in my mid 20s and partying. That went hand in hand with my first divorce. So my first divorce, and then at the age of 23, and I really started getting crazy and partying right around then. I continued to drink and party for several years, even until I met my current wife 10 years ago now in 2013. We got married in 2014, excuse me. So I met her in 2009. We got married in 2014. So I met her 15 years ago. And it just kind of continued even when I had met her. It slowed down a bit when I met her, and it started to help me get healthier and get stronger and get better. The military was there the entire time, just kind of in the background. When it comes to like the alcoholism, I was quiet. I didn't admit it to anybody. I didn't talk about it with anybody. I didn't reach out for help. There was part of me that I didn't think I really had a problem. I was just partying and having a good time, that kind of stuff. And it just kind of continued on and on and on. I would ebb in and out of alcoholism over the years without really understanding what it was or what I had, that it was a problem, that was a true addiction, a true disease, until my first daughter was born. So my first daughter was born in 2017. She spent 46 days in the NICU. And so during those 46 days, I would drink two tall boy beers every single day. So whether it's Bud or Bud Light or whatever, but two 25-ounce beers at a minimum every single day. And that was just how I would unwind in the evening, right? So that was the start of the deep dive into alcoholism at that point. I'd always been like a weekend drinker or even just like a couple of beers at dinner guy. But that's when it got really bad. And then so I turned to alcohol in order to like cope with like what I was going through and my feelings and stuff like that. And then I became overweight, obviously, from drinking so much beer each and every single day. On top of that, once you're drinking like that, you don't really make smart nutrition choices, as I'm sure those of us who have partied and drank know. Like you turn towards pizza and hamburgers and everything else that's not the best for you, right? So that was my primary nutrition sources too, on top of drinking alcohol for those 46, 47 days, whatever. And that's when it all started to spiral. So kid gets out of the NICU. The military was appreciative and supportive during that time. They didn't even have me come into work during those 46 days. They said, just take care of your family, do what you need to do, which was amazing, right? I had the full support of the military team during that time,
That's
and that
incredible.
was a huge relief. Huge
Most
relief, right? Not
most
having to
jobs
go.
most jobs will not give you that.
Correct. Huge relief, right? I didn't have to
Yeah.
worry about work. I didn't have to worry about my boss getting mad at me. I didn't have to worry about any of that. They told me, they said, Max, you go and you do what you have to do, take care of your family, be there with them. So that was amazing. So that leads me to this point. The military will pay into you if you pay into them, right? And so it's a give and take relationship with the military. Because for many years before that, I worked my ass off, to put it bluntly, right? Not just 8 hours a day, but it's oftentimes 12, 16 hours, 18 hours a day. I'd worked my ass off for the military. And so when it was time to invest back in me, they did that. And so I do give them that, and I am appreciative of that. Okay. So during this 46 days, my primary focus was on the family. I was in and out of the NICU each and every single day with my wife, taking care of our daughter, drinking, and that became a problem. I didn't admit it to anybody, didn't talk about it with anyone, kept it all inside, tried to cope with it on my own. It was difficult. Daughter comes home, Gabriella comes home, kind of start to break away from alcohol a little bit, realizing now my responsibility is a little bit more intense now that she's home. And then we go through the turmoil of like trying to figure out what happened at birth. What does this mean for the rest of her life? Like all these different things, right? Which we still don't have all the answers, but that's neither here nor there. So we worked through some of that, and then she has several medical issues along the way, and I have to go to what's called Captain's Career Course. For my branch, it's a 6-month course, and it was in a location where medical services that were required for Gabriella were not available. So during the 6 months, we had to live apart, Stacy, Gabriella, and I. I had to leave. I had to go to school for 6 months, away from my family. It was rough. It was rough, Jay, to say the least. I've deployed before, and I'd rather just deployed than have to live 6 months with
I mean, I think
to be honest with you.
like I think I can see like obviously I don't understand that because I've never been through it, but I can see how that would almost be easier because you know you're going like far away for a purpose.
Yes.
But like this one, it's like man, I just have to like I know I'm going because that's like the biggest part of my job. Like that is like shit's going down. We gotta go. Like country wise, like we're all going. Like it's not just me or a couple people going for this. Like we're hundreds of us are all getting on these planes and going together kind of thing. Like this is like literally we're going and doing our job that we signed up for. I can definitely, and you know it's going to be like a really long time, so it's easier to cope with that because it's like okay, well it's gonna be a couple years, it's gonna be this long kind of thing, so you can like more easily mentally prepare yourself for that because you know
Correct.
versus like 6 months and plus different stages of life too, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so then like
Yes,
the 6
absolutely.
months and you're going, I assume you were going alone for that.
Yes. Yep.
And like
Yep. So
yeah, that doesn't help at all.
yeah, so it's just a bunch of captains. They come together. They put you through this course for 6 months. It's supposed to teach you like everything you need to know at that next grade in order to be a high performing officer for the military in your job. And so that's what we did. So we lived separately for 6 months. Ended up being 8 because about Thanksgiving time frame, Gabriella had to have surgery, and the surgery came with complications, and she ended up staying in the hospital for an extended period of time. I had went back for that Thanksgiving weekend so I could be with my family while Gabriella had her surgery. I ended up staying, and I did not return for a couple of weeks. And because I didn't return for a couple of weeks, I was an admin push back to the next class, and so that added on 2 months to the school because obviously the
Lucky
class had
you.
progressed, and I was exactly right. So the class had progressed, and I was so far behind academically just because they've been in class while I've been out. And so I missed a block of instruction, so I had to come all the way back. So I added on 2 months. So what was supposed to be 6 months apart ended up being 8 months apart. Very, very frustrating, very annoying. And then at the end of that course, came back to El Paso, Texas with my wife. Packed up the house, started to move up to where we live now in JBL in Washington. And on the way, my daughter got 2 infections, hospitalized 4 different times, 3 different states. So we went to Arizona on leave and vacation. She got an infection there. We were hospitalized there. She had what was called a PICC line at the time for IV nutrition. She ripped that out. She hospital in Tucson would not help her, so they sent us back to El Paso Children's, where we did not have a house, mind you. We'd already picked up our house. Did not have a house in El Paso at this time. Our shit was in transit to Washington. So we got back to El Paso Children's. We're there for about a week, so they could take care of Gabrielle, place a new PICC line, all that different stuff. Discharged, go back to Arizona, where my wife's family's from. I hang out there for a day. I get in the car the next day. I drive the U-Haul up to Washington over the first 3 days. Get into Washington. A day and a half later, my wife, my daughter, and my mother-in-law fly in. My daughter had a PICC line replaced while we were at El Paso Children's. She flies in. And then that night, my wife tells me, she says she's really complaining about her arm whenever I go to try to get her dressed. Like every time I do something, she's like grabbing her arm and like something might be up. So we tried to hook her up to our IV nutrition that night. She starts screaming and bawling, and we're like, okay, something's definitely going on. So we disconnect it. The next morning, we call the doctor. What we had was a case manager. We called a case manager here in JBL in Washington. And they said, you need to bring her in immediately. So we brought her in. They said, yep, she has a clot. She needs to be admitted. Mind you, we haven't been together as a family for 24 hours in the state. Yep, she needs to be admitted. Yeah, she needs to be admitted. But we don't have any beds here. You're going to have to go up to Mary Bridge. Like, okay, we don't know what this is. We've never been to this other hospital. We went to the one on
what's
Post.
Mary Bridge? I know what you're talking about. I'm from the Pacific Northwest. Like I'm in Washington. I'm in the Tri-Cities. I'm a Seattle, Washington native. So like you said JBL, and I'm like, wait, JBL? Like I know JBL.
Yeah, man.
Like I know where these bases and things are, and so man, that's rough. Okay, anyways.
Yeah, so they sent us up, and they sent us up to Mary Bridge Children's, which is outside Tacoma, and that's where we are for the next couple of weeks, right? Gabriella is in Tacoma, Washington at Mary Bridge. My mother-in-law is in the hotel. My wife is staying with my daughter, and I'm in between. So for the next couple of weeks, I'm going back and forth from the hotel to the hospital, carrying my mother-in-law up there so she can visit, obviously, since this week came out for. Trying to look for a house at the same time. Like we need a place to live so we can get out of this flipping hotel, right? All this is going on all at the same time. So they're treating her clot. They end up having to give her blood transfusions, different things like that. It's just crazy, right? It's just it's insane. Now,
and how old is she at this time?
She was a little over 2. So she was born in 2017. This is in 2019.
So little.
Yeah, she just had her second birthday right before we moved up. This was in May of 2019, and she was born in April, so she just had her second birthday.
Okay.
So that's what's going on, man. It's a crazy time during that move. Like, I didn't want to drink. I turned to alcohol again, just because it was a rough and tumultuous time in my life. Everything was going crazy. It was nuts. So I did. I started drinking again. Fortunately, not as bad as before, but still drinking almost every single day. So that was rough. So again, revisiting that battle with alcoholism is difficult. I wasn't mentally clear. You're lethargic. It doesn't work out for you, man. Like you feel like shit. You act like shit. Oftentimes you end up looking like shit. And that's what happened, man. I just started to get out of shape and just started to compile over the next couple of years. Gabriella did, so back to the story real quick. Gabriella did eventually get out of Mary Bridge Children's. We did get back into the hotel. We did start looking for a house as a family. She did end up getting another infection in that line. She spiked a fever, ended up having a seizure. We ended up staying back at the hospital on Post for another week in order to recover from that seizure. We signed for our house while Gabriella was in the PICU. We signed for our house while Gabriella was in the PICU at Madigan. So that was rough. It was rough. Obviously, I'm not making the best decisions when it comes to like how I'm coping with stress at the time, and I'm leaning heavily on alcohol or on horrible fast foods or comfort foods, if you will, things like that, and not really delving into exercise as much as I should at that point in time, right? Going through a real personal struggle with like health decisions and health choices. So blinded by the stress, and then when you add in those unhealthy choices on top of it, it just makes you that much more foggy that you can't see clearly or think clearly, and you continue to make bad decisions. And that's what happened for a long period of time. But got her out of the hospital, got our house, moved in just after the 4th of July weekend, 2019. And then that's when things kind of started to level out a little bit as far as like the craziness of like moving and all that different stuff. Gabriella's health journey wasn't over by far. She ended up having another infection later on. And they ended up deciding to replace that with what's called a Broviac. So it's a line that goes into your chest as opposed to the line that goes directly into the veins in your arms. So again, it's like a port in your chest, right, for the IV nutrition. They ended up doing that. So then we dealt with that. In my times and my dates all start to get mixed up. But she did have another seizure, or no, another infection there about 6 months after that. Back in the mat again, going through that whole thing, trying to get the infection cleared, all that kind of stuff. So did end up getting that out, thankfully. After that infection, she ended up getting that. So we're now on IV nutrition, so that's good news. She still does PT, OT, and speech every single week. And then on top of that, her extracurricular activities, right?
That's
So
awesome.
as far as like the unhealthy choices, just kind of spiraling. This one had kind of started to snowball. Really was when she was first born, and then kind of like slow down a little bit. But then during that move in 2019, it really started to pick up again. The unhealthy choices is that the stress of starting a brand new position in what we call in the military we call KDs, it's key development positions. In other words, it's the harder fucking jobs that you have to do good at if you want to get promoted. That's the easy way of putting it. That's
That makes
the
sense.
simple way of putting it. It's the really hard fucking jobs that you better do good at if you want to get promoted, right? So I was starting that at the same time that all this was going on. I was starting my hard jobs, right? So I did multiple TDY trips, and when we say TDY, that's temporary duty, and that often means that we're traveling somewhere, right? So I did multiple TDY trips at the time. I would travel for a week here, come back, travel for a week there, come back. Just traveling all over the country while my wife and my daughter were trying to still kind of figure out this whole medical scene here when we first moved here. So stress of that on top of everything else just was not a lot of fun. It wasn't good. It wasn't healthy. And I turned to alcohol big time in order to just kind of try to cope with that. Wasn't very smart, but that's
And
what
then,
happened.
okay. And then
Go
I
ahead.
guess what was the so now we're probably about this point in the story. We're into COVID. At any point
Yes.
in time, or was it right around this time when? Because you mentioned you've been sober for about 2, 3 years now, right?
Almost 18 months. The end of this month will
Okay.
be 18 months. So January 2023.
Okay. So at this point, while you're going through all this stress, all these things between your daughter and moving and everything, was there anyone around you? Were there people around you saying, "Hey, Max, what are you doing, man? You're gaining weight. You're looking out of it. You're not performing as well." Were those people there, or were people kind of more like off, like, "You doing okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Okay, cool, all right." Or were they more like kind of
Yeah,
hands off?
it was a combination of things. So number one, you're right. You hit the nose on the head. COVID, man. So COVID happened, and people disconnected, and that was a struggle, right? So that was hard. Another thing was my work performance never suffered. I continued to work harder and work harder and work harder and do better and do more and do more and do more and
That
more.
makes sense, because
And
that was
so,
probably an additional coping as well, was
yes,
kinda delving into
yes,
work and diving into work full-fledged, and, between the alcohol and work was probably your one outlet that you had, that you felt confident in, that you felt, and this is very common across most men. Sorry, I'm not trying to
mhm.
psychoanalyze you here. I'm a mental health person.
No,
This is what I do here. I'm cross-examination here. A lot of men will dive when they're struggling, when they're needing to cope. They turn to very few things. There's a very limited scope. And it's normally one of the
hmm
few things that they turn to is they go really hard at their job, like they go hard at their job, or they turn to some
hmm
kind of substance, whether that be alcohol or food or drugs or even pornography or any of these other things to get those dopamine hits. It's normally not a healthy coping. I would say, hey, if you're going to do anything that you need to cope with stress with and you need to have an outlet, dive into your work, because that's going to at least pay off for you long term,
correct.
and not create anything too major that you can't overcome. Maybe the outfall or fallout from that is that maybe you have to then rein it in and cut your hours back a little bit and, pull it back into home a little bit. But outside of that, that's probably going to be the worst thing that's going to come from diving hard into your work, is that you're going to have to rein that back. But the other things, substances, addiction, those are going to be a lot more detrimental in a lot of ways. So it's important. So that makes sense. Work didn't suffer because that was an additional coping strategy.
Correct.
Additional, that was like the outlet. That was the outlet for you. So
Correct. Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And the position I was in at the time, I was expected to be more of an aggressive leader anyways. And so like the anger problems and the emotional problems, I was able to pour that on into my work and appear as like an aggressive leader when really it was just some
Mm,
underlying emotional issues because I wasn't coping properly. And I'm sure you've seen that before too.
yeah.
So,
And that's common. I mean, men, we very much will get it will turn into anger. All these unmet needs. I mean, because anger is a secondary emotion, first and foremost. If you haven't heard me talk about that before, I'm talking about it now. Anger is a secondary emotion. There's an underlying need that's not being met underneath that anger. There's an underlying emotion that's not being coped with or taken care of underneath that anger. And so we need to be able to simmer the pot a little bit, get down to a low little boil, go from 8 on the stove down to 1 or 2, so then we can kind of dive in and see, okay, what's actually in this roaring boil, so that we can look at it. Oh, okay, well, these are my unmet needs. Okay, let's take care of those unmet needs then. Let's communicate those needs to those who we need to communicate it with to make it happen. But all things considered, you just moved here. You just moved to JBL. Your daughter's going through medical issues and things that you were never ever prepared for as a father.
no,
You're
right.
also, in a marriage, you guys are both struggling, I'm sure,
Yes,
and trying to navigate this journey with your child with, now special needs and all these complicated needs medically as well. So you're trying to navigate that. You're moving, you're in the military, you're traveling, you're back, you're traveling, you're back, you're traveling, you're back. I'm sure those were very big challenges as well. So it's not I'm not gonna say that, you know I will say that turning into work makes sense. Leaning into that as a
yeah,
coping strategy makes sense. But also, coping via alcohol also makes sense too.
right,
You know, it was something that made you feel better, that made it easier to be at home, to deal with everything, to take that relief off and things like that. The comfort food made you feel better, gave you those little
right,
dopamine hits that you needed, just to feel better, to be able to say, okay, maybe I can do this. It's gonna suck, but I can do it at least. Or oh, shit, what now? What today? Kind of thing. So it all makes sense in anything. But let's fast forward, unless there's any parts that need to be hit. Let's fast forward to your defining moment here. What was it?
yeah,
Who was it that was like, Max, you gotta stop. Max,
yeah,
you have to change.
yeah. No, I really appreciate that, Jay, because this is so fucking important for me. So it was New Year's Day, January 2023, and I drank too much the night before. I just drank too much the night before. Gabriella and Olivia both wanted me to get up and play with them, and I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't. I just couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't get up and get moving. And I decided then and there I'd never be that fucking father ever again. I couldn't get up and go play with my kids. I just said never again. I've only had one drink since then. It was in May of 2023. Is when I gave up command, and I had the one drink. I don't even really count that one. I got one drink, and like I barely finished it, and I decided that I didn't even enjoy it anymore. So yeah, so that was the defining moment. Was was New Year's Day, January 2023. I decided never again because I couldn't get up and play with them. I had a headache. I was nauseous. I had to lay down for a little while. Like just the your normal hangover bullshit. Said my kids will not have to have that memory of me ever. So I'm fucking done. I quit. And I just posted about this, uh, but I don't regret getting sober. The only thing I regret is not doing this sooner.
100%. And I think that's so important because if I look back on my life, my biological mother was in active addiction. I believe she still is. I don't know. I don't talk to her. I haven't talked to her since I was like 16. She was in active addiction my entire childhood. I was never raised by her, thankfully. But I do remember those things. I do remember those times when she would call and she would be intoxicated and she would be yelling and screaming at my grandma, and then she would talk to me on the phone, and it was just so, like, I could tell even as like a small child, like, this is so fake. Like, this is so, like, not real. Like, this isn't normal. Like I knew it wasn't normal because, like, I see all my friends with their moms and stuff like that. I'm like, this isn't what I'm going through isn't normal. This is different, but like it's better than if I was actually with her kind of thing. But it's like I remember like those things, and I remember like she's in like I remember all the I can't even count and honestly recall how many times she said, "Oh yeah, well for your birthday I'll be sending you this." Never came. For Christmas you'll be sending you that. Never came. Uh, why didn't you send it? Oh, I forgot or blah 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 blah.
Mm.
Um, and then it was just all these messes that my grandma had to clean up, and like all these times. So where it got to the point where I was probably about maybe 7, 8 years old, and my grandma started asking me, "Do you want to talk to her when she calls today?" No, not really. I would be like, "Do I have to?" Because I'm pretty sure before this, at this age, I was already asking, "Do I have to keep talking to her?" And then my grandma was like, "Well, that's your mother. Yes, you do." And I'm like, "I don't want to." And then it just started changing, and I would remember being asked, and then I was probably about 9, 10 years old, and then I wasn't even asked. My grandma would just say, "He's over at a friend's house. He's busy doing homework right now. He's at practice." Oh, I was literally there in the room, um, watching cartoons. So obviously she could hear the TV. I don't think my grandma would just be watching cartoons. Um, kind of thing. And it's like she would just say, "Oh yeah, he's not here. You know, he just left the TV on, or he's over at his aunt's house playing with his cousins," kind of thing. Like he's busy. He can't. Um, because she just knew like it was just every time she asked, it was just no, 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 no. And that's the memory that I carry of like my my biological mother. So I'm so proud of you for that choice that you made back in January of 2023, because that's a defining moment for your kids. I mean, they got their dad back. They got their whole dad back in that
Right.
moment for the rest of their lives, and that's so important because now. So you think of parenting and being with your kids while you were in addiction versus where you are now. What are some of those differences that
Um,
you see every day? I'm sure it's a world. I'm sure it's night and day. But if
yeah.
you had to put like your finger on the top three just with your kids, what are some of those differences?
Yeah, number one is patience. My patience level has skyrocketed. I used to have a very short fuse over all the dumbest shit, right? And now, and now with two kids under 10, while Stacy would tell you that I'm still not as patient as I should be, and that's true, I'm still working on it every single day. I'm much more patient than what I was before, and I think that allows me to express emotional health, and express my emotions in a healthy manner. It helps me set the example for my daughters on how they need to express their emotions whenever they're upset or angry or impatient about things. So that's number one. Number two is mental clarity, man. And when I'm in the moment and when I'm there, I'm actually able to understand what's going on and I'm able to communicate with my daughters. And I'm like, as opposed to like kind of being lethargic or like thinking about 10 other things other than the moment that we're having. Now I'm able to actually focus and enjoy the moment. And then number three is just energy levels. I, I don't know how to explain it other than like, and I know this isn't healthy. I know it's not healthy when I say this, but I only sleep like 4 to 6 hours a night. And I'm still able to play with my kids and chase them around the park and pick them up from school and take them to therapies and all these different things without feeling like shit all the time, right? And like I really don't think people understand, especially when they're in the addiction, how much of a stress and a toll on your energy alone alcohol has on your body, right? Um, Now I drink coffee and energy drinks throughout the day because I only sleep 4 to 5 hours a night. Before though, I needed it. Like I needed it in order to wake up. I needed it in order to quote unquote stay sharp. Now I just drink it one because I'm a caffeine addict because I have to have an addiction of some kind, right? And then,
You're in the
and then
military. Come
number
on now.
two, yeah. And then number two is because I don't sleep like I should. But it's not that I don't sleep like I should because I'm up late drinking. I don't sleep like I should because, in my eyes, it's because I'm so much more productive. And now I realize what I can do with my time. I feel guilty for all the time that I lost out on before. And in my own way, I'm trying to catch up, if that makes sense. So,
Makes sense. Yeah, no, absolutely. So let's talk about your relationship with your wife. What,
yeah, for sure.
how the heck did, how did you guys work through the addiction? Did she know about it the whole time? Did you tell her as you got sober? Did she see it? Did she not see it? Did she say things along the way? And then also, what has your relationship been like since you got sober?
Man, so many things to unpack there, Jay. So first and foremost, yes, I know that she saw that I was abusing alcohol. However, I also know that she understood that we were both going through some hard stuff when Gabrielle was first born, and she didn't know how to help me. I didn't know how to help her. And so, like, while we were married, we were kind of trying to help ourselves along the way, if that makes sense. So, you asked me, how do we survive all this? I'm going to go back to when we first started dating, just real quick. We met in 2009. We dated for about 4 months, and then we had to separate because I had to move. So we met around August, September. And then I had to move in December. So what did we do? We forged a long-lasting friendship and relationship. We were dating the whole time, but when I say long-lasting, I mean like it would be Friday night, and while I would have a couple beers in my barracks room, I would have my laptop up, and we'd rent a movie, and we'd be on FaceTime or something. We'd watch the movie together, like we each watch the same movie. Like little things like that along the way is how we developed our relationship. We became best friends, and she's still my best friend to this day. I don't know what I would do without her. But we became best friends, and that friendship, that foundation has been so important. It's been what we've had to fall back on so many times throughout life, right? It's being able to fall back on the fact that we are best friends. We've formed that strong foundation. We believe in trusting each other. We know that, we both know that the other one will come out on top in the end, as long as we support them and give enough time and patience, right? All right, so I just wanted to rewind and touch on that for just a second. Now let's talk about my battle with alcoholism. So when we first met, we were both like in our early mid 20s, right? So like drinking at that point wasn't like really a big deal. Like that was just kind of what everybody did to go out and party, go to the bar, have a good time, right? I just never seemed to really slow down as time went on, even though I should have. I never really did. I think she was all right with it at most points because I would do most of my drinking. It's just not like I'd go out to the bars or like go out with friends and like drive and do crazy things. Most of my alcohol consumption was at home. So I think from that aspect, she saw it. Well, yes, he's drinking, but he's being safe, so he's staying home. You know what I mean? So overall, no harm foul, right? That's kind of how she viewed it. There were a handful of times when I would be so hungover, I would wake up vomiting and things like that. And then she would get mad, right? Obviously, she'd get mad and upset with me, and rightfully so. But then the anger would disappear after a couple of days. And so, like, it just went untouched for a little while, right? And so, like, oh, okay, not too bad. I can still drink and have a good time, right? It was difficult as far as like her supporting me and standing by me. She did. She was very patient with me. And I will say, like, she never really pushed or forced me to say, hey, you have to quit, you have to cut it out. What she would say is be like, hey, don't forget we have this tomorrow. And so, like, she would give me gentle reminders. That way I wouldn't overdo it that night, especially if it was a Friday or Saturday night. She would give me gentle reminders. And that kind of helped keep me in check. But yeah, so let's talk about when I turned sober and how the relationship changed. So leading up to the point where I turned sober, we had grown apart and we had kind of become just kind of like roommates that lived together that were raising kids in the house, right? Especially when we went through all these hard times. And then I quit drinking. And when I quit drinking, I dove into self-development. When I dove into self-development and I started working on myself and becoming a better version, a better man, our relationship started to turn around. Because I was able to pay more attention to her. I was able to hear what she was saying. I was able to understand her requests and her desires. And we just grew back together over time. We make this joke sometimes, but it goes something like this. It's like, I don't know where we would be if we weren't together. And it's not really a joke. It's more of a statement. Like, I don't know where we would be if we weren't together, but I wouldn't want to be anywhere else right now. And that's because of the growth that we've had since then. Just coming back together and growing back together. Really, she's been a fucking rock star, Jay. If I had to describe Stacy in 2 words, it's rock star. She gets up with the kids in the morning. She gets them ready for school. Gets the oldest ready for school. Gets the youngest dressed so that she can run the oldest to school. She picks them up when I'm not able to sneak out of here and pick them up. Then she takes her PT. She takes her OT. She takes her speech. She does like all that movement and coordination. She does all the interfacing with all the therapists. She still keeps the house in immaculate shape. She keeps food on the table. She keeps me pretty happy, which I'm not easy to please because I'm a high demand guy now, right? She's just a rock star, man. And she does all this and she doesn't complain. As a matter of fact, she's happy. She's super happy to be taking care of our girls. When you meet a person that was born to be a mother, Stacy's that person. She was born to be a mother.
That's incredible.
So
That's incredible.
yeah.
Well, man, what a hell of a story. What a hell of a ride it's been for you especially these last seven years since Gabriella
Yeah.
was born, and everything with your career, with moving, with her, with raising her, with your marriage, with overcoming addiction. That's a hell of a story. And if our listeners didn't get anything out of that at all, you need to go back and re-listen to the whole thing, because there's so much goodness within that, overcoming perseverance, things that we talked about just over these last 30-40 minutes that are just absolutely incredible, that honestly everyone just needs to hear and understand that it is possible to overcome the addiction. You just have to make that bold choice. Day one is going to be harder than day zero. Day two, still going to be hard, but it's going to get a little easier. Before you know it, you're 18 months in, going on 2 years, 5 years, so many things beyond that. But it all starts at zero. It all starts at day one. You have to make that choice. Are you living the life that you deserve? Are you living the life? Are you being the dad? I think that's a big message takeaway here. Are you being the husband and
Yes.
the father that your wife and your kids deserve? Are you being the man, the husband, the father that they deserve? If the answer is no, let's start today. What's
Correct.
waited till tomorrow starts today. That's a line from the Greatest Showman soundtrack. So just what's waited for tomorrow starts today. So before we wrap up here, I'll ask you a few questions to wrap us up. But I want to just shout out another one of our sponsors of the podcast. And this time we're going to talk a little bit about the June app. The June app, JOONAPP. The June app is great for parents of children who have struggle with routine, habits, building those things every day. The June app is absolutely incredible. See, when I talk too fast, I get ahead of myself. The June app, what it allows your children to do is help them build a routine by integrating a game, which all kids love, into everyday life. So what you do as a parent, you have full control still, though. You assign them the tasks. You give them the amount of coins that they're going to earn from these tasks, and what order you want them to do the tasks in. Morning routine, afternoon routines, after school routine, during the day routines, all the different routines and things that they need to be doing every day of the week, different things on different days, so that they can earn these coins in the app. Guess what? They can then cash in these coins for real life prizes. So let's say you want them to earn 3,000 coins, and then you guys go to a movie together or something. And so guess what? Now they're working their tails off for that 3,000 coins to go to the movies. But the best thing about the June app, one of the best features of the June app, is that there's a parent app side of it. So yes, they say that they completed cleaning their room, but guess what? It's going to go to you before they even get those coins. You approve it. So if they did a half-ass job cleaning their room, guess what? You can half their coins, and they only get half of it. And so then you're also teaching and reinforcing and being able to have those conversations in the moment. Say, hey, these things aren't done. Can you pick up those piles and clean your room a little bit better in these ways? And then I'll give you your full coins. So I'm not going to sign off on it yet. So it helps you engage with your child in a very healthy way, in a very easy, simple way, to help build those habits and routines. And I absolutely love it. And you can try the app absolutely for free just by following the link in the show notes, the link in my bio on all my social media. And then using the code YoungDad, you'll save some money off your annual subscription if you end up loving the app. So to wrap us up here, a few questions for you. Thinking back to when you first became a dad, so 2017, how old were you when you became a dad? I'm just curious. 33. Okay. So you're still relatively young.
Yeah.
I became a dad at 21, 22, but also in 2017 as well, was when my first was born.
Oh.
So we got a little bit of an age gap there between us, at least, but we're still both super young. What advice do you have for the young couple who just had their first child, life ahead of them, but they're scared shitless? What is a piece of advice for that young couple?
Yeah. So number one is don't freak out. It's gonna be okay. Right. And I'm religious, so I'm gonna throw this out there, Jay. And if you have to cut it out, you have to cut it out. But
Oh, I'm also
God has a
religious as
plan.
well, so
Awesome. Awesome. God has a plan, y'all, and you have to trust that plan. I firmly believe that our children are our children for a specific reason. I firmly believe that Gabrielle is born to me and Stacy for a specific reason because we are the ones that can help her. We are the ones that can lead her through this thing called life. Right? And so, like, I didn't understand that at the time, and I still don't understand all the reasons behind it. But what I will say is that your children were born to you for a reason, right? So don't freak out. It's going to be okay. That's the first thing. Second thing is don't take it too seriously. Try to have fun, right? Kids don't come with an instruction manual, right? And like while you can read all the books, you can watch all the videos, and that's all great. But your child is your child, and your family is your family, and you have to lead them, raise them, and develop them in the way that makes the most sense to you. And then last but not least is like, yes, you can take advice from other people, specifically from like your parents and your grandparents, but remember that they raised a different version of a different kid at a different time in a different world, right? They're not raising children in today's world and today's time with today's personalities and today's problems.
I love
Again,
that.
some of their advice might apply and might make sense, but a lot of it's not going to.
I love that. All right, now next question here. Thinking of a young dad, let's say he's really young, 21, 22. Let's say he's also in the military, first kid, first like life. He's 20 to 25. Like frontal cortex isn't even developed yet.
Yeah.
He's in the military. He's like, dude, captain, this is. He can't even get the words out, kind of thing. And he's coming to you. He's coming to you just for like some kind of advice. If you had to give him one or two pieces of advice, just specifically for him as a man, as a father, going into this new chapter, while also being young in the military. Let's say he's been in since he was 18, baby face 18-year-old. What kind of advice are you giving him?
Yeah. So number one is take care of your family. Be there at every possible appointment. Be there at every possible school event. At everything you possibly go to it. The reason being is like, while I love the military, I love the army. They're going to use you, right? It's a fact. They're going to use you, right? They're going to put you to work. They're going to send you to the field. They're going to send you to war if it happens, right? It's like you need to invest this time in your family now while you can. Okay. I'm not saying like don't work hard when you're at work. When you're at work, be at work and work hard. But when it's time to be with your family, be with your family and invest that time in your family is number one. Number two is that nothing's ever going to be in perfect balance. And this has been one of the things I've struggled with learning the most is trying to balance out both work and family life. It's never going to be a perfect balance. It's always going to be a pendulum. Sometimes work is going to be heavier. Sometimes family life is going to be heavier. Overall, over time, it should average out and that'll be okay. But it's a constant pendulum, man. It's like, don't stress when you have to put more energy into work and don't stress when you have to put more energy into your family. Because whenever you're placing your energy, if you're focusing on that and developing that the best that you can, it'll all pay off.
Love that. Well, Max, thank you so much for being on today. I truly appreciate it. This has been a great conversation. Lots of great goodness. Thank you for sharing your story with us. It's been awesome to listen, awesome to hear it, awesome to relate in some end about ways, but there's a relation
Yeah,
there in some ways that was really
yeah.
cool in the end. It's really cool how during all these episodes, whether you're listening or whether you're myself in the chair hosting, you learn that we're all not that different. We're all walking the same path called life. We're just parallel to each other, and our paths just look a little bit different. But we're all doing the same things. There's a relation. Sit down, have those conversations, and get to know other people, and you'll find, wow, we're really not that different after all. We can relate in these ways, so it's super cool. Max, last thing here, go ahead and tell the people where they can find more of you, where they can keep up, and where they can learn more about the different programs and coaching that you offer.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Jay. So on Instagram, you can find me at MadMaxFitness84, TikTok, MadMaxFitness84, and YouTube, MadMaxFitness84. On Facebook, you can find me at MadMaxFitFam. MadMax first name, FitFam last name. So
Love it. Well, Max, again, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you to our listeners. Thank you for tuning in. I hope that you truly gained something from this conversation today. I know I did. And while you're going through, make sure you drop those 5 stars, subscribe, leave a review, all the things that show your love for the podcast, show your love for what we're doing here. If you really love the podcast and you're like, man, I got to go check out some of those brands that they work with, they're all in the link in the bio, link in the description for everyone that we partner with. You can also purchase my book and all those different things as well. So Thank you so much for tuning in today. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll catch you on the next one.